not every single college needs to offer a music.
So he goes on to talking about not every college needs a music degree or an art degree, and I would even go so far as to even say theater, anything within the arts. That even includes literature, because certain places, let's just be real, don't offer opportunities like that. And I know there are some people who want to try to say things like, well, that's where you should get like a legit degree like engineering, or you should get something like law, blah, 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 all that. But here's the thing, even some of those people to some extent kind of struggle. So the one thing I would say that I think what would help is knowing what places are going to be beneficial with that degree. Because most of the time when people come, when they go to these colleges, these universities, and they have these big time, they have these big dreams, and they take these like highly expensive, they take these degrees, like I said, art, music, and all that jazz, and they expect they could do something with it. Now, to some extent, some of them may say, I want to go into teaching with it, or I'll get to that. Or they might say they want to do, backup work and such, and that's like, let's just say they're in music, they will be like a music instructor, but like maybe a private instructor, or they work in a music store. The thing about that is these opportunities depend on the place you're at. They do. They depend on where you're at. That's just the reality. I have a writing and theater degree, like double major and such. And although there are opportunities outside of where I'm at, the sad part is even trying to find something that is very close to what I have is very slim. Like the most I ever got, I will say, I've done a lot of teaching, and that's good. But even to some extent, that teaching, it's funny, I never got a teaching degree. I never got a teaching certificate. The most I got was a substituting certificate. And because I had experience doing teaching for summer camp stuff, that's landed me, full-time jobs and such. But back to the writing, I once upon a time had a proposal writer job, but then I got laid off, and there's nothing else around. And even when you apply, it's kind of tough. And so one of the things that's difficult too is part of when you have a degree, what people don't understand is if you get a degree, if you go to college and you get a degree, it's not just the studying. It's the, have you been practical with it? Have you actually done stuff with it? Have you ventured into some of your field? Now, by the grace of God, I got to do, theater work at a local theater and such. And I've worked on a couple of projects. And the same goes for writing, being able to utilize that to some extent. And like I said, for teaching, it landed me like an English teaching job. But I've also done drawing too. So that's kind of wild. But I've also taught improv. But all this to say that I had to look for opportunities to do that. But it's almost like, scurrying around. What can you do? Compared to if you get these other type of degrees or even trades where it's very apparent, it's going to be useful in these, in these towns and such, you're out of luck. Now back to the whole criticism when people say, "Oh, well, you should have got something like this or blah blah blah." Here's the thing: people who aren't into music, there are opportunities for them to try to work on things like games and movies and such. So if they want to do that, people who go into gaming stuff learn like how to code and make your own games and such, but try to work on games. Even writing, some people try to crap on that, but I'm like, real talk, dude. Like, literally every manual and textbook that you have or document you ever read is usually it's usually done by somebody who knows how to write very well. And so all that, it's just a matter of, honestly, I think what he was saying is right. That not every place needs to offer this. And that if they do, that there will at least be a chance for them to work on this stuff. Because that's another thing that is problematic, is where can you find, how can I intern somewhere? How can I, be able to get my foot in the door somewhere? And it's kind of tough. Like I said, when it came to the teaching stuff, I just so happened to, I've told this story a couple of times, but essentially I just happened to be drawing anime stuff, and there was a summer camp at community college that happened to be offering anime drawing. So I've had that since 2016. And I've done other things too. Like now I'm about to do a class for game design for tabletop games, which is cool. But that's something I managed to do. But I know a lot of people out there, they struggle with that. And they feel like, I got nothing. And this kind of sucks because there's even people I know who have, journalists, they have degrees in journalism, they have degrees in like I said, engineering and such. And it practically gets them nowhere. And yeah, you could say, well, just go somewhere else. But part of that is, it's like a catch-22, man. Like, in order to go somewhere, you need to have finances. And in order to have finances, you need to get a solid job and such. And yeah, and so it becomes very discouraging. And this is why we get people who will say things like, college is a scam and such. And it didn't used to be that way. It used to be university actually meant something. Going to school actually meant something, and it actually led to something. But it is a thing that nowadays it just feels like, what's the point of going? So I know I ranted. I went on a bit with this one, but yeah, it just made me think. Like, I'll say this to anyone who is struggling, who does want to try to get a solid career in whatever they're into. Look around, see if it's worth it. Definitely produce your own stuff. If you're going into the arts, make your own stuff. But also at the same time, college is worth it because of connections as well as understanding how to provide criticism and such. But at the same time, think about where you're at. And one thing I can tell you is that, hope for the best. And you never know. You might get a slim chance of doing successful. Anyways, you guys have a blessed one. Take care.